What is up, Benchwarmers, and welcome back to Boom and Bust. Week 2, gone through. COVID. Not hearing too much. Knock on wood. Everybody's hurt. Absolutely everybody. It's a bad year to have knees. But let's get into it with, why did I do that? It's a notebook. Bengals and Browns. Thursday Night Football opening up the week. Actually a good game. So boom was the Browns running backs Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Joe Burrow was close, but they went off. Chubb, 124 rushing yards, two rushing touchdowns. Kareem Hunt, 86 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown, 15 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. When both your running backs have 2 touchdowns, that's pretty good, and I think they have the best running back tandem in football. Now, bust is the NFL for making it NFL Network only, because this is actually a good goddamn game and I wanted to watch it, but I don't have NFL Network. So, yeah, and they don't make it easy for you to stream it if you don't have NFL Network. So that's the bust. Packers-Lions, another noon game for them. Boom, Aaron Jones. He was the Packers' rushing and receiving leader. Devontae Adams didn't necessarily disappear, but he was Lions decided, hey, let's take Devontae Adams out of the equation. And Packers were like, okay, we have Aaron Jones. What you gonna do? But he had 18 touches, 168 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 4 receptions for 68 yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He had 3 touchdowns, and he absolutely killed the Lions. Now, if it wasn't for Aaron Jones, I would have probably put Chandon Sullivan, the nickel corner for the Packers, on this, because he had a pick 6 and he had some really good passes defended. But Aaron Jones just went off, and he's going to get paid. It scares me as a Packer fan. But the bust is Matt Patricia. It all starts with him. That final drive in the first half, Packers wouldn't have gotten that touchdown if it weren't for all those penalties. And Patricia's losing this locker room. The Lions, on paper, have the talent on offense. Offensively, the Lions are the second best team in the NFC North. Defensively, probably third. But overall, I think the Lions are the second best team in the North, especially since the Vikings are garbage. I'll get to them. But Matt Patricia, you got to fire him. You got to fire him. Jaguars versus Titans. Boom. Overall QB play. I could say Minshew Mania again like I did last week. But I have to mention Tannehill too. Tannehill, 18 of 24, 239 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Gardner Minshew, 30 of 45, 339 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Minshew almost brought that team back, and I think the tank is done. They're not going to tank. Minshew is going to do everything he can to prevent them from drafting his replacement. And honestly, they'd be stupid to draft his replacement at this point. He's just good. I debated picking him up in fantasy. Panthers versus Buccaneers. Boom, is Leonard Fournette finally going off. Broke out for 103 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And he apparently only had 1 game with the Jaguars. I was like that. I saw that stat. It doesn't seem right. I don't know if that's true. Don't quote me on that. The bust was Tom Brady, actually. This one was a good game overall. Other than Christian McCaffrey getting hurt with a high ankle sprain. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. I thought about putting him at bust, but Brady had an interception and he did bad in one of my fantasy leagues, so that's why I'm putting him at bust. He won't get you very many fantasy points like that. He wasn't needed for this game. Is the biggest reason I put him at bust. Is they just ran it with Fournette. They could have won with Jameis and would have won with Jameis. So Broncos versus Steelers. Boom, is James Conner finally getting over 100 yards. He had 106 yards and 1 rushing touchdown. He had been kind of struggling since the second half of last year, and it's good to see him get back into it a little bit, and I hope he continues to have that success. The bust was Drew Lock and Courtland Sutton getting hurt. Drew Lock, I think it was a sprained rotator cuff. They didn't really go into detail, but he hurt his rotator cuff. And even if it's not torn, which is a good thing, it's not torn, it's still, that's a tough, I've hurt my rotator cuff. I'm still actually dealing with an injury from a rotator cuff. It hurts. And it's hard to come back from that, even if you don't tear it. So, but he's out 4 to 6 weeks. Courtland Sutton tore his ACL. He is out for the season. Just more injuries. It's a damn shame. Rams versus Eagles. Boom is Tyler Higbee. Only 54 yards, but 3 touchdowns. Quite the red zone target for them this week. Bust was Carson Wentz. 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. I don't care about the yards for this. Wentz, not looking good right now. I mean, I can't blame him too much because his offensive line is awful. The dude's running for his life. 49ers versus Jets. I'm going to do bust first for this one. The bust was the 49ers are cursed. I wrote something down here. I found a tweet from Field Yates. The 49ers have five wide receivers and Richard Sherman currently on IR. Their starting center is on the PUP, Jimmy Garoppolo, high ankle sprain. Their 2 starting running backs are hurt with I almost said Matt Breida. Like, their only running back's Jerick McKinnon. Raheem Mostert has an MCL sprain, and I don't remember what Telvin Coleman's injury is, but he's hurt too. George Kittle, sprained knee. Nick Bosa, Solomon Thomas, torn ACLs. D Ford hurt, undisclosed in this tweet. Their MRI machine broke after having to do so many, I guess. And their plane got hit on the runway. God is pissed about what they did last year, apparently. And he's punishing them. They sold their soul to Satan and sold their players' knees to Satan to get a Super Bowl appearance and not even win. But the Boom, they still won. They beat the Jets. Good for you. 49ers, you might be in trouble here. Bills versus Dolphins. Boom, Josh Allen again. 417 yards and 4 touchdowns. Bust, the Bills defense. I had them in fantasy, and that's how I know how bad they did. Because they let the Dolphins be competitive. Why couldn't Fitzception happen this week? No, it had to happen last week against the Patriots, not against the Bills, which is a better defense. I don't get it. Fitzmagic, Fitzception, he's Fitz consistent. That didn't work very well. It meant to do inconsistent and Fitzpatrick combination. Didn't work. But Fitzpatrick is so inconsistent, sucks. Just want Fitzception. Tua's going to be playing by week 8. That's my prediction here. Next one on the list is Vikings versus Colts. Boom. Jonathan Taylor, former Wisconsin Badger alum, broke for 101 yards and 1 touchdown. Apparently he's the first Colts rookie to get 100-plus yards since 2012. He's pretty much what I expected. He's going to be really good. I wish the Packers could have taken him. They didn't. They got A.J. Dillon. I'm expecting good things out of him too, eventually. But right now we don't need him, which is good. It's very good. But, Jonathan Taylor, boom. Bust. I could just say all of the Vikings, but Kirk Cousins. I saw a stat where he only had 6 completions and 59 yards at one point. But then garbage time came and he had 11 receptions. He was 11 of 26, 113 total yards. And, what was that? 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's terrible. Gardner Minshew, better than Kirk Cousins. Confirmed, because Minshew ripped up the Colts defense, winning last week. The Jaguars, who are trying to actively tank, could shred the Colts defense. The Vikings can't do shit. They're really just going to stumble into Trevor Lawrence, aren't they? Falcons versus Cowboys. Boom, Dak. 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 passing touchdown, 450 passing yards. Brought them back to a comeback, which brings me to my bust. Falcons. What the hell? It's the Falcons' biggest blown lead since 28-3. What a choke job. But also, that onside kick. What were you doing, Falcons special teams? You just looked at it. Am I mistaken? Aren't the Falcons allowed to touch the ball at any time once it's kicked? They don't have to wait till it goes 10 yards. Why did they just watch it? Why did they just look? Wow, it's spinning. Look at that. What the hell? It was not a good onside kick. Like, they did that on purpose to do it like that, but I guess it's to mesmerize the players. I don't know, but they somehow got that onside kick, even though the Falcons could have landed on it at any time. What? And Dan Quinn needs to be fired. Dan Quinn and Matt Patricia need to be fired. And Bill O'Brien. Those are the 3 guys that should be fired after this season. Giants versus Bears. Bears. Boom. Really wasn't anything notable in this game to put boom, so I just put the Bears are 2-0 for the first time since 1993, apparently. That's pretty bad. And they're still not a good team, because they beat the Lions, who obviously aren't good because of Matt Patricia. And they beat the Giants, who brings me to my bust, lost Saquon Barkley to an ACL tear. Yikes. More injuries. Washington versus Cardinals. This one was kind of hard to find a bust for, just because it's like no one was really bad. But boom was Kyler Murray, 2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns with 286 yards in the air. That's pretty good. Pretty good. For an air raid offense, you would expect more passing, but hey, you beat the Washington football team. And the bust was Washington is now Washington again, basically. They beat the Eagles. That obviously isn't much of an accomplishment after seeing week 2 as well. They're Washington. What do you expect? Didn't expect them to win last week. They did, but they aren't going to win that many games anyway. So, bust is Washington, being Washington. Come on, turn the page. Chiefs versus Chargers. This was a good game. Boom was Justin Herbert. He didn't know he was going to be the starter until seconds before kickoff happened. He was like, hey, Tyrod's not coming back. You're starting this game. You're the guy. He's like, oh. Well, all right. And he threw for 311 yards and 1 touchdown. He did have an interception, but for his first start against the Chiefs, Mahomes didn't look very good. But he did. And that Chargers defense, I think they're legit. Bust was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. It's not like he did terrible, but they kept stuffing him. He only had 38 yards rushing and 32 yards receiving. He had 70 total yards. He kind of came back down to earth from week 1. He didn't do great. Ravens versus Texans. Boom. Ravens defense had an interception and a fumble and a defensive touchdown. I think that was off of a pick 6. I don't know, though. I didn't get to watch that game. I wish I did, kind of. Didn't look like it was a very interesting game. And bust was the Texans defense is shaky at best. Their secondary and their run, it's hard to really judge the defense against the Ravens because they're just the perfect balanced team in passing and rushing on offense. So it's hard. They have a really good rushing attack, but the Texans' secondary sucks. It really sucks. Boom or bust, the final one of the week, Patriots versus Seahawks. Boom was Danger Russ. Russell Wilson. 288 yards. You would have thought it'd be more, but he ran for quite a bit. 5 touchdowns, each to different guys, and 1 interception. That looks a lot like Aaron Rodgers' game last year against the Raiders, except I don't think he had an interception in that game, but he had 5 touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, and each touchdown was to a different guy. It's the same kind of thing, except Russ has a interception. That's the only difference, but it didn't matter. The bust was the Seattle secondary. They gave up 397 passing yards to Cam Newton and 3 passing touchdowns. Was it 3 No, they just gave up 3 touchdowns, not passing. That was the defense in general, but they stopped them when it counted. And oh no, I'm dumb. That was Sunday night. Monday night, the final boom or bust, Saints versus Raiders. Boom. Derek Carr. 3 touchdowns, 282 yards, and 0 interceptions. He looked better than Drew Brees last night. Drew Brees did not look good, and they are missing Michael Thomas. Bust was the Saints in penalties. Their discipline was awful. They had over 100 yards in penalties. That's terrible. But that is this episode of Boom or Bust. I will see you in the next episode of Boom and Bust. I keep saying Boom or. I'll get it one day. Boom and Bust. And I'll see you tomorrow for predictions. So, see you next time.